The sun is rising. But before you leave this place, I need you to understand something that will change everything. They think they broke you. They think you are hurt, weak, ready to give up. But what they do not know is that they just funded your rise. And this video is about evolutionary psychology, neuroscience, and applied Stoic philosophy. True revenge is not violence or hate. It is becoming so unbreakable that your critics become completely irrelevant. If you watch it to the end, you will understand not just why you need to drop the idea of personal revenge, but how to transform every rejection into fuel. How your brain is literally working against you without you realizing it. And most importantly, what is the exact protocol that those who grow in silence use while the entire world screams for attention? It will change how you see those who ignored you, who hurt you, who doubted you. Because when you finish this video, you will no longer want them to see your victory. You will want them to wonder why you disappeared. Master your mind, or it will master you. And that is exactly what we are going to do in the next minutes. We are going to dismantle the mentality of those who run after respect, begging for it, and we are going to build the mentality of those who turn disrespect into fuel for silent evolution. Now, let me ask you something. Before we dive into the pillars that will actually transform your mind, write in the comments, "Today I will win." Why? Because when you write it, you commit. And when you commit publicly, even if it is anonymous, your brain activates a circuit that makes you take it seriously. This is not empty motivational talk. It is a declaration of war against your old self. Let us begin. Pillar 1. Running after begging for value makes you lose value. There is a brutal truth nobody wants to hear. When you try to convince someone who has already decided not to see you, you are doing the worst thing you can do. You are diminishing your own presence. You are handing power to someone who does not deserve it. Think about it. You make a mistake at work. Your boss criticizes you unfairly. What is your first instinct? Run after him. Explain yourself. Prove he is wrong. Apologize for something you should not even be apologizing for. In that moment, you lose. Because you're asking for permission to be respected. And when you ask for permission, you renounce your power. The Stoics called this strategic detachment. Epictetus taught that we do not control other people's opinions. You can influence them with your actions, but control, never. And when you stop trying to control, when you stop running after it, something magical happens. You become a threat. Because the people who really underestimated you were counting on your reaction. They were counting on you begging, explaining, seeking recognition. When you do not do that, when you simply walk away, you disorient them completely. And here is where neuroscience comes in. Your brain is built to seek validation. You were programmed by evolution to care about social status. When someone ignores you, your brain interprets it as social threat, and your automatic response is to try to repair it. But what if you do not repair it? What if you deliberately choose not to explain? Your brain goes through a process called extinction. The anxiety drops, and you simply shift. Those who run after begging for value lose value. Those who walk away in silence multiply value, because strategic absence creates impact. Question to keep you engaged. Have you ever chased someone's approval after they dismissed you? How did it make you feel? Pause for a second. Think about it. Pillar 2. The revenge no one expects. You started this video wanting them to suffer. You wanted them to watch your victory. You wanted them to realize they made a mistake ignoring you. But let me tell you what neuroscience has discovered about revenge. You have a system in your brain evolved specifically for it. Researchers call it the deterrent system. It has been there since you were born. When someone provokes you, your brain automatically releases a dopamine reward when you retaliate. That is why revenge feels so good in the moment. But there is a problem. That reward is short-term, and it is inefficient. True revenge is not the other person suffering. It is you thriving in spite of them not helping. It is you becoming so good, so busy, so unbreakable, that when they finally think of you, you are already in another universe. Seneca spent years in exile, abandoned, betrayed. He could have spent all that time ruminating on revenge. Instead, he wrote some of his deepest works, because he understood something that changed everything. The best revenge is not being like your enemy. While the other provokes, you evolve. While the other ignores, you build. And when they finally notice, you are already at another level. No drama, no announcement, no need to explain. It is at this point that most people fail because they are still stuck on the idea that the other person needs to know they lost. But the truth is that when you really do well, your success speaks louder than any word. Question to keep you engaged. What if your revenge was not them suffering, but you succeeding so much that their opinion no longer matters? How would that feel? Pillar 3. How your brain is working against you. Now let me show you exactly how your brain is sabotaging you. You have a reward system that was designed millions of years ago. When you gain social status, dopamine is released. When you are rejected, a neurotoxin called inflammatory cytokine is produced. This feels like emotional pain because it literally is pain for your brain. But here is the trick. Your brain does not differentiate between real pain and perceived pain. For your brain, being ignored is as bad as being physically hurt. And what is the automatic response? Try to fix it, try to please, try to prove your value. But when you do that, you activate a pattern called rumination. Your brain gets stuck replaying the same thing over and over. And every time you relive it, you are reinforcing the same neural circuit. You are creating a neurological highway that says, when rejected, suffer. This is not weakness. This is your brain working exactly as it was designed. The problem is that you were not made for a world with social media, constant comparison, infinite rejection. So what do? You intentionally reprogram it. Every time you choose not to respond to a provocation, you are creating a new neural pathway. Every time you deliberately walk away, you are weakening the old circuit. And with repetition, choosing indifference becomes your automatic pattern. This is why those who grow in silence seem supernaturally strong. It is not because they were born different. It is because they reprogrammed themselves. Question to keep you engaged. What is one situation where your brain is making you react instead of respond? Identify it right now. Pillar 4. The psychology of silent authority. The mindset. Flip. Here comes the flip that will really change your perspective. You started this video wanting them to suffer. You wanted them to see your victory. You wanted them to realize they made a mistake ignoring you. But the brutal truth of neuroscience is this. When you finally get there, when you finally conquer everything you deserved, you will be operating at such a high frequency that you will no longer care if they are watching or not. And that is exactly when you truly win, not when they see, but when you stop needing them to see. Silent authority works like this. You do not proclaim your value, you embody your value, and people feel it, because presence is more powerful than words. Think about someone you really respect. Not someone who shouts about their importance, someone who simply is, who speaks little, but every word counts, who does not need approval because they have already approved themselves. It is that person who intimidates others without saying anything. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of the Roman world, but in his meditations, he did not write about his glory. He wrote about controlling his own mind, and that depth, that indifference to external recognition, was exactly what made him so powerful. Because the truth nobody wants to accept is this: those who really have power do not need to prove it. Question to keep you engaged. Who in your life embodies silent authority? What makes them different? Think about it. Pillar 5. The protocol. 5 habits for invisible growth. Now the practical part. How do you actually do this? How do you stop caring about those who ignored you? Habit 1. The strategic silence rule. When someone criticizes or ignores you, your first automatic response is to explain. Do not do that. Implement what is called conscious waiting. You wait 72 hours before responding to anything important. Why? Because in 72 hours, the emotional reactivity circuit deactivates. You become more rational, and often you will not even want to respond. Habit 2. Redirect anger to work. The anger you feel is fuel, but do not waste it on confrontation. Redirect it to study, to training, to creation. Every time you feel that adrenaline of disrespect, ask yourself, what work can I do right now that would make me impossible to ignore? And do that work. Habit 3. Deactivate life notifications. Most people live refreshing social media, checking if they were mentioned, seeing what the other is doing. Cut that. Switch your phone to grayscale. Disable social media app notifications, because while you are watching the other person's life, you are losing your own. Habit 4. Build in private environment. The best growth happens away from eyes. You study alone, you train alone, you fail alone, and when you emerge, you are already a completely new version. No need to post your progress. No need for validation. Just build. Habit 5. The practice of conscious indifference. Every day, practice being indifferent to something that would normally make you react. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you stay calm. Someone ignores you in a conversation, you do not try to call attention. Small practices, but each one weakens the automatic reactivity circuit. And over time, indifference becomes your nature. Question to keep you engaged. Which of these 5 habits will you start today? Choose one right now. Pillar 6. When they notice, you are already at another level. Now to the final moment. The moment the circle closes. You worked in silence, you refused offenses, you rebuilt your mind. And one day, without warning, people start to notice. But when they notice, you are no longer there to celebrate. You have already moved to the next game. This is why true transformation is invisible. This is why those who grow the most are those who talk the least about their growth. And when people finally see the result, they have a choice. Either they genuinely rejoice for you, or they get angry that they did not see it coming. But you know what the important detail is. You no longer care about that choice, because you are not doing this for them. You are doing it for you. Question to keep you engaged. Imagine 6 months from now, you are thriving. They notice. What do you say? Pause and think. Final transformation. Let me connect all this for you, because the order of the pillars is not random. It is a psychological progression. You start with pillar 1, understanding that running after is weakness. This breaks your automatic pattern. You stop begging for respect. Then you go to pillar 2, learning that real revenge is indifference. This reprograms your motivation. You stop wanting them to suffer. You just want to thrive. In pillar 3, you understand how your brain works against you. This gives you power, because understanding the mechanism means you can hack it. In pillar 4, the flip, you change from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic. You stop depending on external approval. You become psychologically self-sufficient. In pillars 5 and 6, you implement the habits and experience the result. You become the person you already are. And that is when the alchemy happens. You are no longer that person running after recognition. You become that person people want to approach, but you did not ask for it. You just were. That is the greatest revenge there is. And when you understand this deeply, everything changes. Now let me ask you one last time. If this video really made sense, if you really understood that real growth is silent, comment, "Today I will win." Because when you write it, you commit. And this next week, you will wake up with that phrase in mind. And you will make different choices. And those choices will create different results. And those results will transform you. Not in one day, not in a week, but in 90 days, you will look back and realize you have become a completely different person. Someone who no longer needs to run after begging for value. Someone who knows their value. Subscribe if this makes sense to you, because every week we have videos like this. Deep, scientific, transformative, not cheap motivation. It is real psychology applied to your life. Master your mind or it will master you. This is the Stoic equilibrium. Reason as a way of life. Virtue as strength. Discipline as the path.